The death of a toddler at Joondalup Health Campus sparks a review after the boy's parents claimed repeated requests for a blood test were ignored. Fears of skyrocketing rents in the Pilbara amid another resources boom. Eliminating the scourge of domestic violence. Women with professional and lived experience share their ideas on saving lives. And a dreamy but direct portrait of WA author Tim Winton takes out this year's Archibald Prize. Good evening, Briana Shepherd with ABC News. The death of a Perth toddler has triggered an urgent clinical review after the boy's family complained their pleas for help from GPs and hospital staff were ignored. 21-month-old Sandipan Dar died in March after his family said they'd made repeated requests for blood tests at a GP clinic and Joondalup Health Campus to find the cause of the boy's long-running fever. A post-mortem has since revealed he had leukemia.
One of Shandipan's last joyful moments. How the life of their bubbly boy was cut so short just days later, too painful for his parents to bear.
When I talk about him, I just break down inside.
Shandipan's parents say he had routine vaccinations on February 19, after which he developed a persistent fever. Over the next 5 weeks, the pair claim they either phoned or visited the Key Largo Medical Centre on 4 occasions.
Whenever we visited the doctors, they've been recommended for that Panadols, and that's fine. We came back home again that it's all good, and they said that our baby is all good.
And attended the Joondalup Health Campus twice.
They are just sending back us home. So desperately we said, which came to our mind, that do a blood test. So at least you know that what is going on.
They say their requests for blood tests were denied at both the GP clinic and the hospital.
The initial part of the investigation would suggest that the care was appropriate and that we didn't hear of any repeated requests for a blood test to be taken.
I do not want to say that anyone is telling lie, because I do not know, but me and my wife is not telling lie that I'm 100% confident.
Shandipan was being treated for a viral illness when he died at the hospital on March 24.
I am concerned to hear that the Dar family felt that they were not listened to, both at the GP clinic and the hospital.
A clinical review into the conduct of the hospital staff is yet to be finalised.
It is imperative that families are heard and listened to when they bring their children to hospital. And if there is more that we need to do in this space, then we will do that.
Shandipan's parents are set to meet hospital representatives on Monday, but are yet to hear from their GP clinic.
It proves that Shandipan was just a number for them ahead.
The Key Largo Medical Centre declined to comment. Darina Zadvirna, ABC News.
2 people have died in a 3-vehicle crash on the Brand Highway north of Perth. Police say a 4-wheel drive collided with a hatchback and a road train towing 2 trailers in Cooljalu, about 10 kilometres north of Cataby, just before 9 o'clock this morning. 2 people died while a 12-year-old girl received minor injuries. Major Crash is investigating. Former West Coast Eagle champion Daniel Kerr has avoided more jail time for repeated domestic violence against his ex-partner that included physical and verbal abuse and control of her finances. 41-year-old Kerr admitted abusing the woman over a 6-year period, including trying to choke her while she was holding their child, punching her and sending messages from her social media accounts. The District Court was told at the time Kerr was suffering undiagnosed paranoid schizophrenia, which had played a significant role in his offending. The court was told the 2006 Premiership player is now receiving treatment, and family members who were supporting him had seen a marked improvement in his behaviour. The judge took into account Kerr's mental health issues in deciding a 4-year and 6-month conditional suspended jail term was the appropriate sentence. He was also officially declared a serial family violence offender. After weeks of sustained pressure, Immigration Minister Andrew Giles has issued a new directive he says will make it clearer that non-citizens with a history of serious crime should be deported, even if they've lived most of their lives in Australia. The opposition says it doesn't go far enough, while New Zealand has continued to express its concern.
Fronting up to deliver a new direction.
The Australian government expects community protection to be given greater weight when it comes to visa decisions.
That signal prompted by criticism of Direction 99, which led to several non-citizens with serious criminal records escaping deportation.
We need to give a very clear signal to decision makers that decisions should be made based on common sense.
Minister Giles spending weeks defending issuing the direction last year that ensured a non-citizen's ties to Australia be a key consideration in visa cases. Direction 99 making way for Direction 110. The highest priority, the safety of the Australian community, insisting that family violence is so serious it should outweigh other factors and that the impact on victims must be considered. The direction's contentious section on community ties remains, but it's been stripped back.
These are clear, crystal clear directions to decision makers.
Not clear enough, according to the opposition.
I can't believe that it's taken this long to make such a minor adjustment, which in the end is still going to allow criminals to stay here.
But it's a big enough adjustment to cause concern across the ditch, given the original direction was written to address long-held concerns from New Zealand.
It's just not right that we think that people have no connection to New Zealand are deported to New Zealand.
There are circumstances where it is better for the community and certainly for that individual and their children to stay together.
The clean-up of the issues stemming from Direction 99 is continuing. The Minister has now cancelled the visas of 40 foreign nationals convicted of serious crimes. There's another 10 visa decisions he'll be closely watching before the new direction comes in on June 21. Whether the changes work the way the government wants them to remains unclear. Monty Boval, ABC News, Canberra.
Nine Entertainment Chairman Peter Costello featured heavily in discussions at the company's board meeting today, following a fresh scandal for the media giant. Allegations Mr Costello assaulted a journalist at Canberra Airport yesterday were strongly denied by the former Treasurer.
Get in front and I'll come and talk to you, all right? That's a much better way of doing it. Otherwise you'll fall over each other.
2 decades on from setting the agenda in Canberra, former Treasurer Peter Costello, now the chair of Nine Entertainment, is making headlines after this altercation with a journalist.
I did not lay a finger or a fist or anything else on him.
Like a controversial decision in the footy, there's some guesswork.
Sometimes when they're walking backwards, some have the ability to stay upright, others don't.
I've known Peter Costello for many years and I've never known or found him to be aggressive in nature.
And a rebuke from the current Treasurer.
I think it's really important that we treat journalists with respect, that journalists are safe in their workplace, and if anyone should know that, it should be the chairman of a major media organisation.
But the episode is a symptom of a bigger issue. The Nine conglomerate is dealing with the fallout of the departure of long-time senior leader Darren Wick, who left after serious claims of inappropriate behaviour towards staff.
There's already speculation that this could put your chairmanship at risk. What is your response to that?
Rubbish.
What we're seeing clearly here is the effect of gravity. Not just in the collision of two moving people, but in movement on issues long known about, but not dealt with. Changes to workplace law are radically altering how businesses must deal with bullying and sexual harassment.
Under the new GIDI, they're expected to provide a safe place of work. So instead of waiting for the complaint to come through, which is in a sense acting after the horse has bolted, you've got to prevent that problem occurring at all.
Nine Entertainment isn't alone in dealing with difficult issues. A survey of staff in the ABC's news division revealed almost a third had experienced bullying in the past 2 years. Daniel Ziffer, ABC News.
Families across the country are struggling to pay the rent, but the situation is even more dire in WA's northern mining communities. The cost of renting in the region's biggest city has jumped by more than 130% in the last 5 years. And with plans for new resource projects worth billions of dollars, there are fears of a repeat of the situation in the mid-2000s, when people were forced to live on suburban streets in tents and caravans.
The economy is booming in the Pilbara. Iron ore, gas, hydrogen and solar power are all being expanded here. Life is good for those employed by resource industries, but the boom has a downside.
$750.
Deborah Duff's rent for her 3-bedroom home has just climbed to $950 a week, and the single parent has decided to leave Karratha.
And it's so hard on people, everyday people, normal people, you know, people that don't work for the big mining companies.
In 2018, the median weekly rent in Karratha was $470 a week. By the end of 2023, it had jumped to $1,100, an increase of more than 130%.
We were originally paying $979 a week, and we received a lease agreement saying that the rent had gone up to $1,850 a week. And when we first saw it, we actually thought it was a typo.
David Murgatroyd has experienced rental boom and bust cycles in Karratha for over a decade, but he's shocked by the latest increases. Housing pressure is exacerbated by the fact most homes are owned by mining companies.
Of all the houses in Karratha, only 26% are owned by people like myself, mums and dads. 74% is a mining investment.
Locals are calling for creative solutions to ease the pressure on housing, like having modular homes built in Perth and sent to the Pilbara.
And then bringing it up and putting it together as like a Meccano set would be certainly a next step to try and reduce the cost.
With imminent plans for $37 billion worth of new resource projects in Karratha, there's a race against time to build enough homes to house a rapidly expanding workforce. Time Deborah Duff doesn't have.
So many people leave Karratha because of, you know, the situation they're put in.
Billion-dollar projects with a high cost for renters. Charlie McLean, ABC News, Karratha.
The United States is calling on Israel to be more transparent after a targeted strike on a school building killed at least 40 people. The Israeli Defence Force claims multiple Hamas operatives died in the central Gaza attack, where thousands of civilians had been sheltering.
Devastating grief after a terrifying pre-dawn strike. Dozens of Palestinians, including as many as 14 children, killed in their makeshift beds.
We were sleeping when we suddenly saw a rocket falling on us.
UNRWA says about 6,000 people were taking shelter at the school in central Gaza.
People's remains were scattered inside the yard and outside. The children died while screaming.
The Israeli army says it was a precise strike on Hamas militants who were operating there, and claims satellite images prove it wasn't targeting sections of the building where civilians were taking shelter.
Our intelligence and surveillance indicated that there were no women or children inside the Hamas compound.
Attacking, targeting, or using United Nations buildings for military purposes are a blatant and disregard of international humanitarian law.
This latest attack inside Gaza has prompted an extraordinary intervention by the United States. The White House is calling on Israel to be fully transparent with the public. It's rare for the US to publicly question the credibility of Israel, but it wants the IDF to identify all of the militants it says it has killed in this new strike.
Even if the intent is what the IDF has said publicly, that they were trying to use a precision strike, if you have seen 14 children die in that strike, that shows that something went wrong.
The escalation comes at a sensitive time for ceasefire negotiations. After 8 dreadful months, pressure has never been greater on Israel and Hamas to reach a peace deal. But as the war rages day after day, it's civilians who are paying the ultimate price. John Lyons, ABC News.
Police on the Greek island of Symi are ramping up their search for missing health expert and wellness advocate Dr. Michael Mosley. The British broadcaster didn't return after a walk from a local beach, and police fear he may have fallen from a height.
Australia has this international reputation for being sporty, fit and super healthy. But is it really true?
Dr. Michael Mosley burst onto our screens with his health advice. How to live longer, eat and sleep better and exercise more efficiently. But he was perhaps best known for his advocacy of intermittent fasting.
These sort of foods.
Now a land, sea and air search is underway for the broadcaster, who failed to return back from the beach on the Greek island of Symi. Greek police say the 67-year-old left his wife at St Nicholas Beach, then set off to walk back alone to his holiday stay in the village of Pedi, but never made it. Dr Mosley's wife, Dr Claire Bailey, who often co-hosted shows with her husband, raised the alarm. Local search teams have been beefed up with support from Athens, and the search area has been widened.
All the rescue teams of the island are looking to find him. With drones, they are go into all the island.
Dr Mosley set off in sweltering heat, likely across rugged terrain. But with no trace of the father of four yet, Greek authorities have vowed to keep up the search until he is found. Jenny Lavelle, ABC News.
To finance now, and the All Ords has ended its week on a high following a highly anticipated interest rate cut in Europe. Here's David Chow.
Well, interest rates are starting to come down overseas, but not here just yet. Overnight, the European Central Bank slashed its rates for the first time in 5 years. The Europeans have come a long way in their fight against inflation, which has dropped from more than 10% a couple of years ago to now just under 2.5%. Unfortunately, Australia hasn't had as much success with its attempts to ease cost of living pressures. So that's why there's only a 46% chance that the Reserve Bank will cut the cash rate by Christmas, while markets are betting, at the other extreme, that the US, Canada and Europe will almost certainly cut rates twice, maybe even 3 times by the end of this year. And one reason why Australia is struggling to bring inflation down is that households are still spending big, especially on essentials like healthcare, which has gone up 15.7% in the year to April, no thanks to private health insurance. Unfortunately, it's just not one of those things you can easily stop spending on, unlike fashion and recreation, which is down quite a bit. Meanwhile, the share market rose by 0.5% today, and after going up for 3 days in a row, the All Ords has gained 1.8% for the week, which is pretty strong. And today's best performing stock was IDP Education, which rebounded sharply from yesterday's sell-off. Now overseas, it was a mixed bag with Wall Street flat, Asian markets down, and Britain's FTSE a little bit higher. Gold, oil and iron ore prices went up, while the Aussie dollar is buying 66.7 US cents. And that's finance.
A love of conservation has brought together the winning artist and subject at this year's Archibald Prize. Laura Jones won for her portrait of celebrated author Tim Winton. Her friendship with the man who wrote Cloud Street has helped put the painter on cloud 9.
It's a case of fourth time lucky for this year's Archibald winner, Laura Jones.
As a little girl in Kurrajong, I dreamed about being an artist. I've been lucky enough to make that dream come true.
Her portrait of prolific author Tim Winton captures his concern for the Ningaloo Reef in Western Australia, an issue the pair bonded over.
He thought he looked like he had the weight of the world on his shoulders, but he does.
Today we begin on the reef.
Winton has been a vocal advocate for the protection of the reef, captured in a documentary released last year.
He said about Ningaloo that it's a place that could teach us how to get things right if we just pause a moment and listen.
This year also marks a big win for First Nations artists. The gallery received a record number of Indigenous entrants, and Aboriginal painters have taken out both the Wynne and Sulman prizes.
It shows the songs of the 7 sisters in the stars, crying. Now I am crying, but this time with happiness.
The Sulman Prize for genre or mural painting was won by Naomi Kantjirani, accepted on her behalf by colleague and fellow finalist Muna Kulyuru. All finalists will be on show at the Art Gallery of New South Wales until September. Sean Tabarak Goodwin, ABC News, Sydney.
Well-known broom astronomer and tour guide Greg Quick has died of cancer at the age of 62. Quick grew up in the mill towns of WA's southwest before arriving in Broome at the age of 21 in the early 1980s to go pearl diving. His enthusiasm for the Kimberley's night sky prompted him to start offering stargazing tours 25 years ago. Quick gained international acclaim after appearing on the ABC and BBC, with fans dubbing him Space Gandalf for his distinctive white beard. He was diagnosed with cancer last year. In the 2 weeks since Jennifer and Gretel Patelchis were shot dead in their Floreat home, there's been an ongoing conversation about what steps could have been taken to prevent the tragedy, and more broadly about the systemic changes needed in the way we as a society address domestic violence, which the Prime Minister recently declared a national crisis. Tonight, in a Stateline special, political reporter Kian Burke speaks to 3 women with professional and lived experience for their views on solutions that will help save lives. But first, a reminder of the devastating event a fortnight ago and how authorities responded. It's been revealed a 63-year-old man who shot dead a mother and her teenage daughter in their Perth home was looking for his ex-partner. The gunman, who then killed himself, used a licensed firearm to carry out the attack.
This man, if you could call him that, is a gutless, evil coward. Look at the picture of Jennifer and Gretel and tell me we don't need gun reform in Western Australia.
So many women that I've spoken to in my community last night and this morning are feeling exhausted and furious because more women are dying at the hands of a man. Men have to stop killing women.
As a society, we need to do better to put a stop to family violence. And I've asked the Police Minister to closely review what happened on Friday to see if there's any further changes that we can make to make these laws even tougher. We owe that to Jennifer and to Gretel.
I spoke with police on 3 separate occasions to raise the alarm about my father. My mother and I made it clear that lives were at risk, and we were repeatedly ignored, repeatedly failed. These failures have cost the lives of 2 incredible women.
I rang the Deputy Commissioner after I read Ariel's statement to ensure that we are doing an internal investigation.
We have made significant investment in FDV services, significant investment in education work and in upgrades to our laws, and we'll need to continue to do that.
Police did exactly what their policy says they should do.
I've been told that the Department of Communities followed the protocols.
If a process is meant to keep women safe and 2 women are dead at the end of it, it hasn't worked, has it?
I'm going to wait the outcome of the internal investigation to see what processes failed, if any, to see what needs to be done. But I'm not clear that any of those processes actually failed.
Alison Evans from the Centre for Women's Safety and Wellbeing. Jackie Darley, whose sister Lynn Cannon was murdered in late 2022. And Alison Scott, lived experience expert, whose sister was murdered by her husband in 2019. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Alison, how can procedures be followed and yet 2 women die in Floreat?
Well, I think that's a question that we're all asking, that if procedures were followed, then those procedures are ineffective. When Ariel and her mum walked into that police station for the first time, that's when we should be bringing the perpetrator into view, and we didn't, and we failed. And that's what a system reform needs to address.
Jackie, you've been on the other end of these processes failing. What are the gaps that you continue to see?
Well, look, I'm not an expert. I'm just a big sister who lost her little sister in the worst possible way. We saw huge failings. My sister should have been saved on the night that she was killed, and she wasn't. So it's extremely upsetting and frustrating when you see that there's still failures happening. You want them to learn the lessons and for it to save lives.
Alison Scott, it's been nearly 5 years since you lost your sister Jessica. Has change happened fast enough?
No, it absolutely hasn't. I think if we keep on moving at this speed, we're going to lose so many more lives. There are not experts at the table when we're doing these reviews. In my opinion, they shouldn't be internal reviews. We do have risk assessments that would have pointed out these things, and these are what we'd call basic family violence screening. Like, this is 101 stuff that hasn't happened. So that really does raise a huge alarm for me.
Just on that, the government's response over the last 2 weeks has really been focused on changes to firearms laws. Let's just have a look at how that's played out.
Whilst I think gun reforms need to be made, they would not have made a difference. Men will kill regardless of what weapon they use.
Firearms aren't the only thing that needs to be considered in FDV response, but it's a part of it. It's one of the elements.
We will bring in amendments in relation to the gun laws, which will require the police to seize the guns of a licensed firearm owner in the event that that person is the subject of a formal complaint in relation to family and domestic violence. We want to keep women safe. We want to make sure that we have a precautionary approach, and that safety is our number one priority.
Alison Evans, is that what you wanted to hear from the government over the last week?
I mean, I fully support the sentiment in that we want to ensure that we've got a safe system for women and children. So we need to build a system that is actually taking that that responsibility away from victim survivors. And so to be harder on our responses to perpetrators who are holding firearms, I think, is one part of it.
The thing for me is that everything, all of these ideas that they had were good ideas, and they're always in the pipeline. We need them to be much quicker. You know, these changes need to happen much more quickly, because it just seems to be a very slow process, and meanwhile, lives are being lost.
I think it's really important that they have the right people looking at this stuff, because if it is government workers just pushing through their processes to get policy and procedures right, they are not going to look at it from a lived experience perspective and see what flaws are there. So we already know that Aboriginal people don't necessarily go to police. We know that that triggers something in child protection. They're both systems that have lots of flaws in them for Aboriginal people and have been based on racist policies and procedures for a very long time. So if we don't get this right, we are going to not protect the most vulnerable people in community.
I think, of course, we've got such a heavy focus on preventing and in the majority of cases, the intimate partner homicide. We're talking about that real pointy end, but we can't lose sight of how necessary it is to be looking at that prevention work. And it sounds so fluffy when we're talking about preventing such horrific crime, but we have to start linking it so directly to those horrific murders that we need to do more.
For each of you, what is the one thing the government needs to do tomorrow to start getting on top of this issue much more quickly?
I think that's so unfair to just give us one thing each. I think our investment must match the scale of the problem, and currently is not. So we can't hold our heads up high and say we're doing everything we can.
Just listen and act. Listen to these people here, listen to what they're saying. They know what they're talking about. They're dealing with it face to face on a daily basis. Listen to them and act.
Yeah.
I think government needs to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, and we need to start having different conversations. There's no point just keeping on doing what we're doing, because I think we have made significant mistakes with where we've put money before, and we cannot afford that at this time. So sit down and have some real conversations about how we can do this better, because we can. And we absolutely have got amazing people here that can guide this work, but there is a lot of exclusion happening at the moment, and people not wanting to answer some difficult questions.
Alison Evans, Jackie Darley, Alison Scott, thank you all very much for your time.
Thank you for having us.
And if you or someone you know needs help, you can contact 1800-RESPECT by phone or their website. The women's top seed, Iga Swiatek, is through to the final of the French Open at Roland Garros. The Pole beat American third seed Coco Gauff in straight sets, 6-2, 6-4. She's aiming for her third straight French Open title. Swiatek will face Jasmine Paolini in the decider on Saturday after the Italian 12th seed defeated teenager Mira Andreeva 6-3, 6-1. It will be Paolini's first Grand Slam final.
Now it's something, it's something crazy for me. I'm really happy, surprised, and yeah, that's the feeling right now.
The USA has caused a huge upset at the men's T20 Cricket World Cup, defeating Pakistan in a super over victory in Texas. The co-hosts scored 12 off the final 3 balls to tie the game in regulation and upset one of the world's best cricketing sides. After beating fellow debutants Canada in their opening game, they may now need only one more win to progress to the next round of the tournament.
Minnows of world cricket causing an upset on the world stage.
The red, white and blue of USA has overcome the 2022 finalists.
Taking place in a converted baseball stadium in a Dallas suburb that had never staged a cricket match until last year, few people expected the United States to take it to the 6th-ranked Pakistan, a test-playing country where cricket is the most popular sport. An engineer when he's not playing, Shahrab Netravalkar took centre stage in the American bowling attack, taking little time to stake his claim on home soil.
That's beautifully bowled. Oh my goodness, what a blinder that is! That is absolutely sensational.
Some fans chose to mask their identities, others wore their allegiance on their sleeves and heads, overjoyed with the historic victory.
And they have back-to-back wins. One of them highly unexpected, but highly inspiring.
The incredible performance by the US could further propel cricket in a country more familiar with bases than stumps.
It's a big day for Team USA, and I would say not just for USA, for USA cricket community too.
I am upset. We are not playing good in all 3 departments. We are better than that.
Pakistan's tournament hopes now hang in the balance ahead of a must-win clash against rivals India. Fraser Fife, ABC News.
And now to Tabarak Jrood for the weather. And Tabby, we're in for another wet weekend.
That's right, Brie. More rain on the way. But first, let's have a look at how winter's treated us so far. We've had a few strong systems move through the state, which have brought on some long-awaited rainfall. In just our first week of winter, we've seen more rain in some areas than previous seasons combined. Geraldton, for example, has already recorded nearly double the rain it had over the past 6 months. Jurien Bay has doubled that and more. Bickley in the metro picked up a whopping 75 millimetres yesterday, taking its total so far this month to 126 mils. Perth got just over 73 millimetres in the past 7 days, compared to 78.8 mils we recorded across all of autumn. So definitely nice to see that rain return to WA after the long dry spell we had. And we enjoyed some fine conditions in the city today, getting up to 20.2 degrees around 2:15 this afternoon, after a mild low of 14 degrees. And we had some milder temperatures overnight, but Newman Airport and Warburton got down to 5 degrees. Meanwhile, 29 degrees was the hottest temperature today once again, and that was reached at Derby, Mardi and Columbaroo. Now, that cold front we had yesterday is drawing a thick cloud band across the Central West and Wheatbelt districts, so we still have some lingering showers over those regions, and that band will remain there as we start to see the next system come up tomorrow night. That front will be slightly more significant with a little more rainfall expected. So folks around Geraldton are looking at another 24-hour total of 30 to maybe 70 millimetres of rainfall. Other towns across the Central West could see up to 50 mils, while much of the Southwest will also receive a decent top-up, up to 20 mils possible over the weekend. Now, the Bureau of Meteorology says it could be issuing a severe weather warning as that system gets closer, so make sure you stay up to date with that. Around the country tomorrow, a shower or 2 for Sydney and Melbourne, partly cloudy and 13 at Hobart, Canberra 17, while Brisbane and Darwin enjoy more sunny conditions. And our northern regions will also be enjoying more sunshine tomorrow, with temperatures forecast to reach the high 20s. Meanwhile, it's more wet weather for central parts, with showers southwest of a line from Denham to Eucla and heavy falls possible about the Central West and northern Wheatbelt. The southern half will also have some showery activity tomorrow, with a chance for gusty thunderstorm near the coast between Mandurah and Walpole in the evening. In Perth tomorrow, we could see up to 4 millimetres of rain. Otherwise, it's looking partly cloudy with a top of 21 degrees from an overnight low of 12. On local waters, winds will be northeasterly, turning northwesterly 15 to 25 knots in the middle of the day, with a swell around 2 metres. The sun will rise at 7:12, setting at 5:19 once again. And then looking ahead, the showers are staying consistent all the way through the weekend and into next week, and we could even see another 30 mils in the gauges by Friday, Brie.
Thank you, Tabarak. And that's ABC News. You can stay up to date with ABC News Online, or you can catch up anytime on ABC iView. It's been a pleasure having your company. Good night.